In this one, we'll be modeling a completed character from scratch. It might look complicated, but this is actually a really simple character, and if you're familiar with the basics, you'll be fine. This is going to be similar to my video about making characters with the skin modifier, except we'll take it a little further by adding a face, some clothing, and materials. I'm going to be using a color palette that I made, and if you want that for free, you can get it on Gumroad along with some other free stuff. I also have some paid products over there like lightning models, the paint filter, ASCII generator, and glitch effect. Links are always in the description. Alright, here's a quick summary of the steps we'll be taking. So first we'll start by bringing any reference images into Blender and setting them up for a front and side view. This step is optional. Second, we'll get started with the limbs and body, using the skin modifier technique like in my other video. When we have a good result, duplicate the mesh and apply the skin modifier to add some details like the shirt cuffs. Third, we'll make the head and face using some basic poly modeling skills and relying on the subdivision surface modifier to give us that smooth, stylized look that I'm going for. Fourth is clothing, and with this character, we're only modeling a vest. The other clothing will just be made in the material step, except for the shoes, which is step 5. Again, this is just basic poly modeling with a subdiv modifier, and then we use a mirror modifier to flip it and a solidify modifier to add some thickness. And 6, our last step, is bringing our color palette into the UV editor and assigning colors to our character. I basically UV unwrap anything made with the skin modifier, and then assigning colors is as easy as selecting faces and positioning them. Don't worry if you haven't unwrapped models before, we'll go through it. Alright, let's get started. So here we are in Blender 2.92, and for this video I'm assuming that you all have a basic knowledge of, how to get around, move around in Blender, and basic modeling like scaling and extruding and things like that. With that being said, I do have screencast keys going here, so you can use this to follow along, and I will still be explaining my process as I go through it and talking about some hotkeys. So I just have my default scene right here with a camera, light, and all that, and I'm just going to hide all of those for now, and I have this second collection right here. If you don't have one, you can just hover over here and hit C to add a new one. This one I'm going to put our reference images in, so I'm just going to rename this to ref like that, and my reference images I already have in this window right here, and to bring them in you basically just need to drag and drop them in like that. I don't know why, but it just always does that the first time for me. But yeah, you can just drag and drop them in like this. So now we have them in here. If you don't want to use references, you don't have to. If you do want to use the same references as me just to follow along more precisely, you can just take a screenshot of these images right here that I have up on the screen. So I'm just going to select both of these images right here and hit Alt-G to clear the location and Alt-R to clear the rotation like that. And you can also see in the N side panel, the location and rotation and all that. So I'm going to rotate these 90 degrees on the X like that. And I'm just going to scale these down so they're a little smaller than 2 meters tall. That should be fine. And I'm just going to position them so the feet are pretty close to that 0 mark right there. I'm just going to take this second one right here and rotate that 90 degrees on the Z axis. So then when we hit 3 on our numpad to look from the side, we have our side view, and 1 shows us our front view. And we can change some of the settings for the images by clicking this button right here, Object Data Properties. So we can make it so you can only see these in orthographic or perspective. So I only want to see these in orthographic mode, so I'm only going to see it when I hit 1, and I'm going to do the same thing for our side one. And I also want these to display on top of whatever we're modeling. They'll always be in the front if you hit this button like that. And I'm going to turn the opacity down to 0.2 for both of these. Alright, and just so we aren't constantly selecting them, I'm going to hit this button right here, and it disables the selection for everything that's in this collection right here. And if you don't see those, you can hit this filter button right here and just make sure that this icon is blue. You just got to remember that if you do want to adjust these at all, you have to click this button again. So now that we have our references in here, we'll just get started with the body. First, I'm going to add a new collection right here, and I'm just going to name this char for character, something short. And I'm going to get started by adding in a plane like this, going into edit mode with tab M to merge, and I'm just going to collapse all of them so we have one vertex in the center right there. And I'm just going to drag that up right here and start adding our modifiers. So this is going to be pretty similar to the other video I made about modeling with a skin modifier. So first I'm going to add the mirror modifier, and then the skin modifier, and then the subdivision surface like that. And you're going to want to make sure that you're in vertex select right here so you can select everything properly. And it's also helpful to go into X-ray mode for this. You can either click this button right here or hit Alt-Z like that. So I'm just going to select everything in here. We're still in edit mode, and hit Control-A to scale that down. And I'm just going to start extruding that with E. Go up like this. I'm going to grab this and pull that out to the side for the hip. And just try to match our reference pretty closely like this. You can see that there's a circle, a very faint circle right here, and that's our root. And it's good for our root to be in the center, otherwise sometimes it makes the skin modifier glitch out. So I'm gonna just reposition it to the hips right here. And you can do that over in the modifier panel with mark root like that. And now you can see our circle is right there. It's pretty faint, hopefully you can all see it. It is right there. Basically laying out the basic shapes right here. So I'll extrude up, and that's going to be for the neck. Select that, come out for the shoulders, down to the elbows, up right here. And now let's focus on the hands. Okay, just extend this out a little bit, and I'm just going to scale it down just so I can see a little better. And I'm just going to start pulling these out to go to the knuckles right there. Again, I'm just extruding with E. And it'll look a little broken at first, but it'll come together pretty quickly. So select all of these and extrude them like that. I'm just going to scale those apart from each other like this, just to get them a little closer. And I'm just going to line these up. It doesn't have to be perfect, so don't, get too finicky with it. It doesn't have to match exactly your reference. You just want it to look good. You want the final result to look good. So now that we have all the fingertips where we want, I'm just going to select this one they're all stemming from and just scale that up with Control-A, just all the way, and eventually it should snap together like this. And if it's not really looking good, you might have to take this and move it around until it looks all right. And I'll just go through here and maybe move this around slightly. I can scale this down just to get a more defined wrist. And if you hit G twice, you can slide like that, and you don't have to worry about it moving all around. So I'm just positioning that a little differently. Going through here, I'm just going to start scaling things now. So this looks okay. That looks good. Okay. Then this I want to scale down a little, and I'm also going to add a loop cut in here with Control-R, like that. Just pull that down a little so our neck is a little thinner. And I think that looks good. So now we can work on the body right here. So I just want to select the hips right here and scale these up a little. And at a certain point, they will kind of snap and connect to, where the legs connect right there. And to define the shape a little more, we can add some loop cuts like that. And just see how these respond to scaling. Look at it from the side too. If you want the weight to be a little lower, you can just drag this down like that. I think that looks okay. Let's take a look from the front again. And remember that you can also scale these just on one axis by hitting X and Y like that. And you can also access that option in the N side panel right here. I'm just going to scale this part up. It's looking all right. All right, so let's add that knee now right here. Just pull it forward. I'm just going to rename this body rough. So this is like the rough draft of our body basically. And when you have this the way you want it, you can just Shift D to duplicate like this. I'm just going to hide the first one like that and rename this just body. And I'm doing that so that if I want to change anything later, I still have the original. So on the one that we just duplicated, I'm going to apply all the modifiers like this. And if you didn't see that option, you can turn that on. It's under Preferences, Add-ons, and it's called Modifier Tools. Modifier Tools, you just have to make sure that is checked. So now that we have this applied, I can add in another subdivision surface modifier to smooth it out. And I'm gonna come in here and just delete half of these. I'm just gonna delete this half right there, hit X, and we're gonna add the mirror modifier back in. I'm just gonna make sure that's up top right there so that we don't get any weird seams like that. So now that we have that going, I am gonna come in here and I'm just gonna extrude a little spot right here like this. And I'm in face select mode for this. And to select that loop all the way around, I hit Alt and left click right here. And this doesn't have to be exactly lined up, so don't worry too much about that. I'm gonna hit Alt E to extrude, and I'm gonna choose extrude faces along normals like that, and just pull that out slightly. And you can see this is pretty smooth right here. And so we could add a loop cut like this and pull it down, but instead of adding more geometry like that, what I like to do is just select this loop right here, again with Alt and left click. And in the N side panel, you can turn up mean crease, and that will tell the subdivision surface modifier that this part should be sharp. All right, and we have some cuffs, so it looks a little more like a shirt now. All right, so next we're going to work on the head and the face. So for this, I am going to add in another cube right here, and just gonna hit Control 4 to add a subdivision surface modifier like that. And I'm just gonna scale that down and move it up and into position. So when you get it where you want it, just Control A and apply the scale. All right, so just tab into edit mode now, and I'm just gonna start adding some loop cuts like this, shaping this out. So 3 to face select, I'm gonna select that top, scale it in a little, and I'm just trying to get close to our reference right there. I can scale this one down. That looks like we need maybe another one. Okay, that's pretty close. So one thing I want to be looking at is the position of the mouth in our reference right here. So when I turn the subdivision surface modifier down to about 1, I want the mouth to line up with some of these faces. So I'm just gonna select this loop right here, and I just wanna move it up until it's, these faces right here are coming close to our mouth. And this will help us when we start making the mouth a little later. So I'm just gonna go through and adjust these until they look pretty good. All right. So maybe scale this out a little. Let's take a look from the side and see how that is. I'm just gonna go into X-ray mode, and I'm gonna pull these forward like this. And occasionally I like to come over here and just hide everything we modeled to get a clear look at our reference right there. So I think I'm gonna move this just up slightly, this bottom part. Right there. And I'll scale that outward on the X-axis. So now that we have this, you can do the same thing that we did where you have a rough version and the final version, but I'm pretty confident with this one, so I'm just gonna apply this right here. Okay, and then I'm going to, once again, add another subdivision surface modifier in here. And I'm also going to add a mirror modifier, and that one is just gonna go before the subdivision surface like that. And you can see we have a seam in here right now, and that's because we need to go in and just delete half of these like that. And I try to keep all my mirrored stuff on the same side. So my head is on this side and my body is on this side right now. So now that I did that, we don't have that weird seam, okay? And you can see when I turn this off, these faces are pretty close to just like wrapping neatly around the mouth. And if you need to adjust it, you totally can. I just went into edge select mode, and I'm gonna select this edge with Alt and left click. And you can just slide that down with tapping G twice, like that. So I'm just gonna move these up and away from the mouth very slightly. And to make the mouth, you wanna go into face select mode with 3, or you can press that button right there. Select this right here. And I'm just gonna hit I to inset. And if it goes in the middle right there, you can just hit B for boundary. You can also see that shortcut is up here like that. And I'm just gonna bring that down until it's close to where the mouth is opening right there. Like that, okay? And if you want this to be further over, you can just select that loop and pull it over like that. And so next I'm gonna pull the mouth in so it actually goes into the head. And this is a little easier with the mirror modifier turned off. That way we can actually see clearly inside the head. So I'm just going to select this face right here and hit E to extrude and then Y to constrain it along the Y axis and just pull that in very slightly. So we're going to have this like little ledge and it's going to sharpen up our subdivision surface modifier a little. I'm going to extrude that again on the Y axis and I'm going to scale this one on the Y axis by 0 and that should just flatten it out like that. Okay, so now this piece is completely flat. And that's as far as I'm going to go into the mouth. If you wanted to, you could extrude this some more and like scale it up and make like actually the inside of the mouth like this, but I'm not going to do that for this one. This one's a pretty simple one, okay? So now when we turn the mirror back on and see what it looks like subdivided, you can see it's pinching in the middle, and that's just because we have these faces that we need to delete like that. So I'm just going to select those and delete the faces, and that should look okay now. But you can see right now our character has lips in the reference, and I want to add those. If you want to, you could leave it like this, but I like the way those lips look. So I'm just going to hit Control R to add a loop right here. Just put that maybe right about there, okay? And then select these three faces and extrude those out on the Y axis like that, okay? So now we have some lips right here. And again, if you see any creases like this, it's because we probably have some internal faces. So I'm just going to turn the mirror modifier off for this, select these faces and delete them like that. And that should look fine now. And once again, I want our, like where the lips meet the head to be a little sharper. So I'm just going to select this loop right here, hit N and turn the mean crease just all the way up, and that should sharpen it right there. Okay, so next we're going to start on the face. So I'm just going to rename this head like that. And so I'm going to do the eye first. For that, I'm just going to add in with Shift A, going to hit M for mesh, and then U for UV sphere right there. I'm just going to rotate that on the X-axis by 90, and I'm just going to scale that down a little. And to position this, I like to turn snapping on. Right now you can see if I hit G to move this around and hold Control, it starts snapping, but it's snapping to the grid in increments, I think it's called, like that. And I'm just going to turn this to face and select median right there. So now when we move it around and hit Control, it'll snap to whatever face we're hovering over like that. And it's just putting the origin point on it right there. So now we can, you know, line this up and scale it and just hold Control when we want it to snap to this mesh right here. And then I just want to apply the scale and apply the rotation, okay? And then I'm going to mirror this with a mirror modifier and select the head as a mirror object. So now it's on the other side of the head, okay? Make sure to save occasionally. This is pretty much all we're going to do for the eye. I don't need to model the eye at all. We'll cover putting the pupil there when we get to materials. But I do want an eyelid, so I'm just going to rename this eye real quick, or eyes. I'm going to come in here and select this front point right here and just hit Control plus on the numpad to expand the selection until we're halfway right there, and hit Shift D to duplicate like that. And with that still selected, hit P and separate it by selection right there. So now we have two separate objects, and our eyelid is one object right here. I'm just going to rename that lids for eyelids. And because the origin point is still in the center, when we rotate it, it'll just rotate right around our eye nice and cleanly, okay? And if we want, we can make it so it only rotates on the X-axis like this. And if you move these, you still can move them even though they're locked, but you can't when you're, you know, when you hit R over here. See, I try to move it on the Y-axis and it doesn't move. I want this to have some thickness, so I'm going to add a solidify in here, and I'm just going to change the offset to 1 like that, and I'm going to add in a subdivision surface to smooth it out a little right there. So now we can see this is looking like a decent eyelid, and I can just rotate this so it lines up with our reference pretty well. So I'm actually just going to change the offset so it goes into the eye slightly like that. I think that's okay. So now we can focus on the hat right here. So to do that, I'm just going to select our head right here and go into edit mode. I'm going to do a similar thing the way we did with the eyelid. So I'm just going to select this top and start hitting Control plus to expand the selection. And when we get all the way right here to near where our hat is, I'm just going to Shift D to duplicate it, right click so it stays in the same spot, and then separate with P by selection right there. And once again, we have this second piece now. I'm going to rename that to hat. I'm going to make it look kind of like a knit cap. And so I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to select this loop right there. Okay. And I'm going to hit E to extrude, and I'm going to scale that like that. And you know what? It looks like it's not really working correctly over here, and that's because clipping is off. So I'm just going to turn clipping off right here, and it should work better now. Right there. It doesn't go past that middle point. So you don't need to extrude this out very far, just a slight lip right there. And then I'm going to extrude it upward again on the Z axis right here. Okay, so now it's like kind of a J-shaped profile, like cross section right here. And I just want to add in a solidify, okay? And I can move that above the subdivision surface. That way it gets smoothed afterward. And if you want to change the thickness, you can totally do that. I'll move this up maybe like 0.03, something like that. And we'll take a look. Looks like it's pretty thick. So, and also it's going the wrong direction. So I'm going to change the offset right here like this. Maybe I'll make it like 0, okay? But it's cutting into our eyes. I'm just going to go into edit mode and grab this bottom loop right here and just pull it up slightly so it isn't interfering with our eye all too much. If you're having a hard time seeing this, you can either go into X-ray mode right here. It looks like we might have some geometry doubled up, so I'm just going to select everything and hit M and then by distance. And it looks like that cleared up some things. It says removed 5 vertices. So now I can select this and move it up, and it's not giving us trouble anymore right there. Select this, you know, just mess with it and play with it until it looks good. That's looking all right. All right, so it seems like we are done with the face now, and we can move on to the vest, which is the only piece of clothing that we're going to model other than the shoes. So to do that, a lot of people would select the body and basically do the same thing we did with the hat and the eyes and just like kind of select a big part and duplicate it. But this one is going to be pretty simple, so I'm actually going to just model it directly from a cube. So just add in a cube, and I'm going to hit Control 4 to subdivide it. I'm just going to scale it down slightly and move it into place. Tab into edit mode. I'm just going to delete the top and bottom faces. And when we do that, it's going to turn into a cylinder. It'll just kind of like automatically recognize the open edges as sharp. And then I'm going to add a loop cut just in the front. And because the top and the bottom aren't there, it's not going to go all the way around. I'm going to bevel that with Control B to open it up slightly. And I'm just going to delete that face right here. And to make this a little smoother in the back, I'm not going to mirror it, because if we mirrored it, I'd have to add a loop right here, and it just kind of flattens things out. You have to do a little more modeling. So just keep this in mind that this is not mirrored, and you have to change both sides, okay? So now I'm going to go into X-ray mode and start moving some of these into position. So we'll set up the top collar right there, select the bottom. Make sure you're in X-ray mode for this, otherwise it's not going to select all the vertices in the back. See what it looks like from the side. This is way off in the side, so I'll just grab these and pull them in like that. This is looking okay, and I'll just reposition this right here. Okay, I am going to add a loop cut right underneath the arms so we can have a little opening right here. So we are cutting through a little, but I'll deal with that. Actually, I'll just pull that out a little. We are going to thicken this slightly later with the solidify. I'm gonna select this face right here and this face, and I'm just gonna hit I to inset. And I don't want this to snap to the edge like that, so I'm gonna hit B so it should be in the center, and just pull that in very slightly and delete those faces. So those will open up, so we have little openings for the arms now. Okay, and if you wanna adjust these at all, you can just hit 2 and, you know, select those with Alt and left click, or Shift Alt left click if you want to select multiple loops. And if you scale them apart, they will move away from each other like that. So you can change that by hitting period and selecting individual origins, and then it won't do that. You can also, if you don't want to use the hotkey, you can select this up here, okay? And just make sure you change it back after. Okay, so let's do the collar now. Maybe actually move this down slightly, like that. That looks okay. So let's select this top loop right here. Oh, that loops all the way around. So I'll just select it from the side right here, okay? And I'm gonna extrude this and then hit S for scale, okay? Like that. And then extrude on the Z axis, just down slightly, okay? So now this is what we have right here, and we can start pulling these around to make our collar look a little better. So I'll just look at the reference and get it pretty close. We'll see what it looks like. Okay. It's looking okay. Let's try the front right here. So let's select these two loops because again, we're not mirroring it, so we have to select each part manually. I'm just gonna pull that out slightly. And it seems like we're clipping through the edge a little. So select these side loops, look from the front, and scale on the X axis like that. You can pull it out slightly. All right, that's looking pretty good. I do want to add some thickness to this eventually. So I'm gonna add the solidify like this and just move it above the subdivision surface. And so now this is looking a little thicker. We can turn that up if we want. I'll say like 0.02, something like this. And if you want to change the offset, you can also do that. So I'll just set that to 0, something like that for now. You can see in our reference, we have this kind of like lapel looking thing. So I'm gonna add that next. So to start with the lapel, I'm just gonna select these edges right here, okay? And then just extrude that on the Y axis, just a little. You don't need to do it too much. Then I want to go into X-ray mode, and I just want to select these top vertices right here. Okay, and I'm gonna pull these down slightly, and I'm just gonna hit G twice to slide it. Because you can see, you know, this tapers out a little. So I just pulled those down a little. Okay, so I just want to select these edges now. Whoops, not those. These ones in the front. Okay, and then from the front, I'm going to E to extrude, hit S to scale so they move apart from each other, and then I want it to be only on the X axis, like that. Okay, just gonna pull them apart like this. It's looking all right. Maybe I should move these up a little more. I'll just select those and hit G. That's looking a little better, okay? And that's looking pretty good. Okay, let's see. It doesn't look like we're clipping through at all. So if you're paying close attention, you'll notice that I didn't apply this scale. So you can see this does not equal 1. And let's see what happens when we apply it now. We got to select it and hit Control A to apply it. And you can see that changed the thickness, and that's because all the modifiers will look at the like relative scale of things. So when you apply it, it kind of changes the way the modifiers work. So just make sure that you're applying your scale as you go along, and we just have to go in here and change this very slightly. So I'll just turn this down a little. That looks okay, just like 0.01. I think the default is all right. All right, so the next step is going to be the shoes. I like modeling shoes quite a bit. It seems like a little more complicated than it might be. It's pretty easy though. So I'm just gonna bring a cube in here and just scale it down slightly like that. Okay, and just put that over here. Go into edit mode. I'm gonna drag this up. So it's pretty close to that 0 mark right there. Okay, and then I'm just gonna apply the scale real quick and add in a mirror modifier. And I want this also to be using the head as a mirror object. I try to keep those consistent if I can. And you can see when we move these closer, at some point they will kind of try to merge with each other. This might be more apparent if we're using the subdiv. At a certain point you can see they want to merge with each other. And we're never going to make our shoes touch and join in that way. So we can turn off merge right here. And then we don't have to worry about that at all. Okay, so let's just go into edit mode and start pushing this around. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this off for now. So I'm just gonna start, you know, pulling this around, and I'll extrude. Actually, I'll scale everything down on the X right there. Look from the side, select this face right here, this front face. I'm just gonna extrude this outward. Okay, like that. I'm gonna start adding some loop cuts, maybe one right here. And if you go into X-ray mode, you can start pushing this around from the side, okay? It's looking okay. All right. I think this one, I'm gonna pull forward a little and I'm gonna extrude a little more on the Y. And this is gonna be our heel right here. So select these and pull them down, okay? Just out a little. Scale that on the X, so we have a little heel right there. I'm just gonna go back into object mode and put this a little over, just because it's bothering me, it's not quite center. We can look from the top and change the profile. So I'm just gonna hit slash on the numpad, and that will hide everything except for this. And if you wanna get back out, you just hit that same button, okay? Then I'm just gonna scale this out a little on the X, so it gets a little wider at the toe. So this part, I'm actually going to extrude it up very slightly, okay? Right there. And then I'm gonna delete this face. You can see it opens up right here, okay? So I wanna scale these. Okay. And select this top loop right here. Actually, not the top loop, just the front one right here. I'm gonna use this to extrude the tongue, okay? Add in a little loop right there. And like that, okay. And you can see we don't have any thickness, so we need to add in our solidify, like that. I'm just gonna put that, again, before our subdivision surface, and we can just change the thickness right here, 0.03. So now we can, you know, position this however we want it, and we actually have the thickness in there. All right, so let's just move this around until it looks good to us. Okay. And I just want to select these edges right here, and this is going to be the other part of our shoe. I don't know what you would call that. It's like a cuff, I guess. So extrude that up like here, and now we're starting to get that like classic high top kind of look right there. I'm gonna do a similar thing that I did with the collar, and I'm gonna extrude this and then scale it outward to create that little lip right here, and then extrude it downward on the Z-axis like that, okay? And then we can just, you know, fine tune this, move this around so it is a little closer to our reference, like this. All right, that's looking pretty good. All right, it's a little chunky. I might move it in a little right here with the face. Select both of these faces like that. So again, it doesn't quite match our reference, but don't worry too much about that. If you think it doesn't look good, you can change it, okay? Select these, scale them on the X, get them a little closer, but try not to make them go through each other or you'll get some weird errors. I want to change the tongue a little, so I'm going to make it a little skinnier right here on the X, like that. And I want to make this one a little skinnier also, but I want the top to be kind of fat, so I'm going to pull it out like that. Cool, that looks all right. All right, so this is still kind of like looking like a sock. It's not really flat on the bottom. So to fix that, I'm going to add a loop right here, right there. And I'm going to scale that on the Z by 0 to flatten it out so it's completely flat. I'm just going to line it up with this ridge that we have right here. Select this loop right here and hit Alt-E to extrude the face along normals right there. I'm just going to bring it out very slightly like this, okay? And I want this to be sharp, so I'm going to grab this loop right here with Alt and Lift, click, and turn the crease up there. So now it is sharp. And I want the toe to have a little more character, so I think what I'm gonna do is add a loop right here and just pull this around until I think it looks good. maybe like this. I'll move this down. It's looking all right. So I just want to select these right here to see what it looks like when I sharpen it, because I want the toe cap to be kind of prominent right there. So that's looking okay. I think it might need to move in a little more. So I'll just create another loop right here like that. And I'm going to scale this part inward a little. You know, I want the whole loop. Okay. And you can just, you know, tweak this however you want it. Maybe make this a little wider right there. Okay, I think that is looking pretty good. I don't know what happened, but our solidify went away. I must have messed something up at some point right there. So we can just add that back in, move it before like that, and just change this to maybe like 0.03. Okay, cool. So now that we have this, we can turn the mirror modifier back on. And I'm just going to angle these out slightly, like that on the Z, rotate it. Just line these up with the leg if they look like they're not in the right spot. And now we can work on the materials. So for this, I am using a palette that I made. And if you want to follow along exactly, you can download that palette for free on Gumroad. I'll have a link in the description, okay? So to do that, I'm just going to drag open a new window right here. You can just go to where two windows meet and drag down. And then up here, I'm going to change this to the UV editor right there. And you just want to hit open right here to add a new image. And you just want to navigate to wherever you saved the palette that you downloaded. So now we have our palette in here. You can just zoom in because it's a really small image. It's just 16 by 16 pixels, okay? And so now that we have this in here, we can, first of all, I'm going to select everything, make sure these are named shoes, and I'm going to put it in with the other ones and give that a save. And select everything and shade everything smooth, okay? And we need to actually add the material. So I'm going to select the head and then hit A to select everything. You can see that the head is the one, it's actively selected. That's why it's a different color. You can go right here to the material properties and add a new material. I'm going to go into the shading tab right here to set it up. Okay, let's look in on our character right here. And you just want to shift A. And I'm going to search with S and then add in an image texture right here. You can plug the color into the color of this principled shader. And we already loaded our image in, so you can just press this right here and choose the palette, okay? And you can see right here, it's kind of smooth, and I don't want that. What's doing that is this linear right here. You need to change that to closest, and it'll sharpen it out like that. I'm also going to Shift A and then S to add in a texture coordinate. And I just want to make this use the UVs. So drag that into the vector right there. And that's pretty much all we have to do to set this up, okay? If you do want to mess with the roughness, you totally can do that or change this around. But that's it. That's all I'm doing for right now. So let's go back into layout right here. And now that we have everything selected with our head as the active selection, you can hit Control L to link all of the materials, okay? And you can see our body didn't change, and that's because our body was made using the skin modifier, and everything else was using just a primitive that we brought in. And a lot of the primitives are unwrapped by default. So this one we just have to unwrap. So just select the body and hit Tab to go into edit mode. Select everything with A and hit U and just unwrap. And you can see this appeared over here, and that means that we successfully unwrapped it, okay? And when we go exit out, you can see the material is applied now. And so the basics of how this works, I'll show you with the head. If you click the head and hit Tab to go into edit mode and select everything over here, you can see that we have our UVs over here, and you can hit A to select everything over here also. And when we move it around, you can see over here that the colors are changing. All right, and if we scale this down small enough so that all of this fits into one color, we can use this to choose what color we want. And this makes it so you don't have to add like a million materials. You can just use one material for a lot of different things and have different colors. So to scale it down really small, you can just hit S for scale and then 0. and it just scales it down to like this little point right here, and you can put that wherever you want it. So I'm just going to put this on white for now, okay? I'm going to exit out and select everything and hit tab again. So now we have everything over here, everything is selected. So just hit A to select all, scale it down to 0. Okay, and I'm just going to move everything over here. Oh, you know what? We didn't actually select everything over here. So hit A over here, S to scale, 0. Now we can bring everything over to the white. And so if something is white, we know that it's plain now, okay? Another thing you can do with this, if you're in face select mode, you can select any face you want and then hit G over here to move it around, and you can change the colors of individual faces like that. I don't want to do that right now. So I'm just going to select the whole head with L, and I'm just going to choose a skin color. And so for the skin, I want something maybe like this, this darker teal right here. Also for this, I want to use material preview right here, and our colors will just look a little more accurate. So next I want the lips to be a slightly different color. So I'm just going to turn off the mirror modifier for now and select this, the back part of the mouth, and just hit Control+ to start expanding this until it reaches the outside, the outer edge of the lips right there. And this I want to be maybe a slightly darker color like that. I think that's good. A little more blue and a little darker. Next I'll do the eye. So I'll just select that vertex right there and hit Control+ until it expands as far as I want it. I'm just going to make this pupil black right here. So now we have a black pupil. And if you hit L over this, it should select the whole eye, and you can hit H to hide it. That way I can select our eyelid right here. And if you want it to be the same color as something else, you can just shift click the other face that you want. So you can see over here, now we have our eyelid selected, which is white, and our lips over here. So we can just select just this one and move it over to the same spot like that. And now it's the same color. To get our eye back, we can hit Alt-H, and that just unhides everything, okay? Next, I am going to just hide our vest. You can also do that over here. And I'm gonna start selecting, if you need to go into X-ray mode, just make sure you go into solid first. And if you wanna be able to see colors when you're in solid mode, you just need to make sure that you have texture selected. Otherwise, your texture won't appear, it won't match this over here. So I'm gonna hide the head also right there. And I'm just gonna select this top vertex and expand the selection so that I can make this part be the neck, okay? Right there. And I'm gonna bring the head back and do the same thing I did with the eyelids right there. So now we have two different colors over here. I'm just gonna move the white part over to that skin color so it's the same. And I'm also going to select this hand right here. I'm going to hit C to bring in circle select right there. And once again, I am in object mode for this and in X-ray, so that way it's going all the way through. But I'm going to switch back to material preview and select one spot on the head and move this white part over. So now our hands and our neck are the same color, okay? All right, so I'm just going to select a loop right here to make the pants, and I'm just going to expand the selection until it gets about as high as I want. So I'll make this kind of like a jeans color, maybe like a darker blue like this maybe. And then I'll select the whole body with L, and you can see now we can see all the colors we're using for the body. I'm just going to change this white part again to maybe like another blue, but like a pale light blue like this. All right, so I think our body is good for now. I can unhide our vest and select our vest. Whoops, and select our vest right there. I want our vest to maybe be a little darker blue like that. So now let's do our hat. We can just select that, select everything, and I want this to be orange. So maybe this orange color right here. And next, our shoes. So select that. I want these to match our hat, okay? Have some like good accent points going. So I'm gonna have our shoes be white and orange. Select this right here, this whole loop, maybe just expand that, see what that looks like. All right, I can select that part and the tongue right there, and just move all of that over to the same orange color right there. And I think I want the bottom of our shoes to be a different color also. So just select the entire bottom right there. And I'm gonna make this kind of like a gum color. So maybe like a dark pink like that. Well, let's see what that looks like. That's looking okay. All right, I think we're done. And that's all we're gonna cover in this one. I think the next character related video I make will show some basic rigging. So subscribe if you don't wanna miss that. And if you have any recommendations, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.